Okay, we're joined now by District 6 candidate Craig Johnson. Craig, nice to see you.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
You got it. And we were just talking that your service thus far has been on a city level and also on perhaps a state or regional level in politics. Tell folks a little bit about your political career, as it were, so far.
Sure. Well, a few years back, I was on the Lino Lakes Charter Commission. So that's involved from the city level. They have a charter for the city. And so we frame and amend much of the, we'll call it a constitution. So I did that for 4 years, and I was also Senate District Chair in a couple different terms in Senate District 38, which covers much of District 6.
And that's working with the constituents, the residents there, or the candidates, or both, or kind of shaping how things play out? How does that work?
Well, it's kind of a global, if you will, working with candidates for one. You know, the focus is on the Senate and the House, but you get involved in the entire community. So what I was involved in was helping candidates, getting people out there, getting information out to the voters so they understood the issues. So it really was a full coordination of all the efforts and the candidates.
A lot of facets to your experience, it sounds like. What about that do you think brings you to this point where you seek this seat on a county-wide board that represents a section of Anoka County, and Anoka County on that level as a whole, a growing and very large county with a large budget?
Yeah, well, first of all, it was kind of a surprise that it was there. Rhonda Sivaraja had been for 15 plus years. Rhonda did, from my perspective, a very good job. So, you know, she was really kind of focused on the residents, which I can say not everybody's focus is there. So when the opportunity came up, I did a little soul searching because I had been involved a little bit with her in this and understood what the county is involved. So you have 7 commissioners. The 7 commissioners have to collaborate to bring the best interest to the entire county. I felt those were skills that I could bring to the table versus working for city council or the state, which tends to be heavily polarized. So I think realistically, understanding the importance of what a county board does, and I feel my skills, collaboration, facilitating, and really kind of being an independent thinker who can also collaborate made sense for me.
Okay. In thinking about District 6 and knowing kind of the makeup of it and kind of where it is and where maybe it is going, what is it about District 6 relative to the rest of Anoka County and those other 6 districts that you mentioned that you hope to perhaps highlight or even support or maybe even help grow on a county level?
Yeah, it tends to be, I guess, the most diverse. You go from Linwood Township down to Fridley and Columbia Heights. So as far as the residents, the setup, it's pretty diverse. My goals, if I was elected, was to really reach out to the communities, whether it be down in Fridley, where I probably have the least amount of contact in the past. But my area is Linwood Township down to Lino Lake, Circle Pines. So really it's understanding what the needs of the municipalities are. It's understanding the needs of the residents. It's getting out and really focusing on the big things such as what's important as the infrastructure. Also, just as a side note, I took in guardianship of 3 nieces about 6 years ago. And the county did a fantastic job in facilitating that. So I want to make sure we maintain that. Human services being the biggest part of the budget, I want to be able to get my arms around that to understand, do we need more services? Do we need to fine tune the services? And then the final part is, Anoka County's done a fantastic job from my perspective of not kicking the can down the road. They have a lot of state mandates that come down that they have to handle, and I think they've done a good job of what I'll call common sense budgeting, needs versus wants. And so that would be my focus, you know, in doing so.
There was a Star Tribune story recently about the human services spending and the fact that some counties are a little maybe perhaps stingier or don't have the resources that Anoka County has, so people are moving here to Anoka County. They highlighted a handful of families, the majority of them have moved to Anoka County so they can get better services for disadvantaged, disabled, or family members in need of that kind of thing. So I hear you saying that that is something that you see as important, you see as an asset to the county, and continuing at that level of spending. Is that a difficult chore, though, when trying to balance the other things that people look for, public safety, the infrastructure needs, those state mandates that you mentioned? Is that a tall task on a county level to continue that level of service while trying to meet the expectations of others?
It's always going to be. Our societies are changing ever so, daily, weekly, monthly. And I really think it's important that we keep to the pulse of understanding where it's going to go. Yeah, we're going to have residents come here. So we can look at that as a compliment that people want to move here, but that also changes how we have to go about doing things. We want to make sure people have the services that are needed, but again, wants, needs, I want it to be needs versus wants.
Something that Anoka County and Washington County have recently partnered on, along with the state and Connexus Energy, is the Minnesota Tech Corridor.
Yes.
The land that is shared there along in District 6, square in District 6 on the eastern edge, really, with Columbus and Lino Lakes, Centerville, and Forest Lake. And looking at that as an opportunity, how do you see District 6 can really get involved in that and bring that to the forefront of the county, and how can that benefit this district, obviously, but the county as a whole as that continues to develop?
Well, economic development is incredibly important. I know they hired a director for that, so the focus is, if we get businesses come here, that's going to help our pay for some of these services potentially. So anything we can do to enrich in our community, and at the same time, use those what's coming in, the input from that, to improve, whether it's our human services or whether it's our roads or parks, makes a ton of sense. And that's an area that, if I'm elected, I would focus on, is trying to make sure we can enrich our county that way.
Have you had the opportunity, either in your previous experience or since you started this process, of talking directly with people about what they want to see the county government do? Are you talking to people in District 6? And if you are, what are they saying? What are you hearing specifically from them, perhaps maybe that we haven't mentioned so far?
I've really reached out. First of all, I'm the type of person that I'll talk with anybody about anything, as long as we can come to at least an agreement that it's a discussion. So I've met with people, I think, from both sides of the aisle. I've met with the municipalities. I've been to all but one so far. So understanding that how important infrastructure is. Other individual residents, I've gone to some festivals. I was at Blue Heron there. So you have people coming up and asking. I also have seen the county to these events has people that are reaching out as far as water quality, looking at those type of things. So really it's the full, when you meet a person, they're going to have one or two things they're going to push, as part of the discussion. And I want to hear it. I may have some thoughts already on these, but you know what? When you talk to somebody that you might not fully agree on, in the end, you may actually learn something. And so I'm willing to have those conversations to make sure that I am representing everybody, not just a chosen few.
Are there opportunities on the board with the changing, with Rhonda moving on and taking the administrator spot, the representation from Cordiac in the southern part of the county now changing to Mandy Meisner? Is there an opportunity on the board level to really affect some kind of change or maybe take different directions than the county board has in the past, now that with this election there will be essentially 2 new members in the past year on the board?
Of course, when you add 2, it's just numbers. 2 of 7 have changed. Mandy and I think, agree on some things and we disagree on others. But we've had a great conversation on that, her being brand new and me potentially being there. So it's understanding that. I think, my focus with any commissioner, particularly a commissioner I may not quite see as eye to eye with, is let's figure out the things we can agree upon. Let's think about the residents. Then once we've solidified that, is we have the opportunity to go back and maybe some of the issues we don't quite agree upon. But I think there's going to be some new insight with Mandy coming on board, potentially me coming on board for some new ideas. You just never know until that happens. But I see things we can improve in Anoka County. It's not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And bringing new insight to the county, because things are changing all the time. And so that's going to be my hope is, yes, we can affect some change in the county. What it's going to be, only time will tell.
maybe maybe it is easy to identify challenges for representing any given district. District 6, obviously no exception. Do you see any challenges that are possibly also opportunities as we move forward?
Yeah, I think there always is. I try to think the positive side of that. I know that they've talked about public safety. We've got issues right now, and it's a matter of figuring out corrections. I know that they're trying to, find ways. I mean, it's growing and growing and growing. What do we do to change that? We have to change it now so that the future we're set up for that. And like the roads, I think we've been fairly forward thinking, which means it's not reactionary. I don't ever want a point where we're going to be a reactionary. There's plenty of counties out there that are reactionary, out of choice or just that's the way they've done business in the past. So my goals would be to continue that, think ahead, figure out ways that are 2, 5, 10, 20 years out, because the decisions we make today are going to affect the future. And whether we put new buildings in, new processes, it's going to go well past my time as a board member.
Speaking of that, what do you see for Anoka County and specifically for District 6 looking 20 years down the line? What are you looking for? What do you think is possible? What do you see?
Well, I think the development portion of it. You see cities like Lexington that are going through some changes. That's one, if most people don't know, it's 1 square mile.
Yeah.
And so they've had a lot of, the properties have been single family homes. Now we're seeing more higher density in there. How's that going to change? How's the business going to change? Roads, we're seeing roundabouts, and we're looking at different ways to do that. I think there's plenty of things that we can look at that are traditional and change. So I'm not sure if I fully answered your question exactly the way you wanted me to, but it's really, there's always opportunities to find it. And right now I just get my arms around it to make sure that I understand it and talk to the people and then really kind of make a decision from there.
Okay. Craig Johnson, thank you very much for coming by today.
Well, I appreciate it. It was a good opportunity to let people know who I am. And I appreciate what you guys do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.